Good evening. Welcome to this month's Town Administrators Report. I'm David Watts Jr., and with me is our Town Administrator, Steve Maio. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, David. Welcome to you. I just want the viewers at home to know I had nothing to do with this here. We weren't haranguing over any of the questions before the show.
This was black ice in December, where it should not have been.
Yeah, right, and it's 75 degrees in January. So
this
go
last
figure.
weekend,
Go
I
figure.
know.
Yeah.
So we're going to, normally in December we do a year-end show. This one's going to be a mix between year-end and looking forward a little bit because we have a lot of stuff coming up.
We do.
And, not least of which is we have a whole bunch of elections coming up very quickly with the replacement for Paul Brodeur.
Yes, yeah.
And we have one of our town council members running for that seat.
Ann Santos is running for that seat.
Yeah. And so the primary on that is February 3rd.
February 3rd, and that'll be held at the Galvin Middle School,
Yep.
where all our elections are held via a vote by the town council, central location. And that is just for precincts 3, 4, 5, and 6. They're the only ones that no.
I'm in 3.
You're in 3.
Donald Wong is my rep.
No, I know. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, there you
Okay,
go.
4, 5, and 6. That changed afterwards. Okay, repeat.
They switched those, yeah.
They switched those around. So basically, part of Greenwood and the West Side, I guess is the way to look at it. And then that primary election, there will be a general election for that seat, which will be the same day as the presidential preference primary.
Right. March 4th.
March 4th.
Yep.
And ostensibly, there's only Democrats running for the state rep seat that are announced. So I think ostensibly who probably wins this election will most likely win the general that'll be held on.
Yeah, I understand there is a Republican write-in candidate.
There is a Republican write-in candidate, but I think that my feeling is, my prediction is, I should say, is that that's what will happen.
They'll still have to wait a month.
Right. And special elections, I think it's important to note, if any of the viewers at home in Wakefield say, well, why were those dates chosen? Who chose those dates? That was set by the state.
Mm-hmm.
The state, and actually the state legislature came down and said these will be the dates for the election. So that's where it is.
But we also have town election coming up in April.
Town election coming up in April. I believe it's April 28th, where all of the town elected officers that are up for vote will be up for vote then. And there'll be a number of other articles there, including the public safety building should be on the ballot coming back, that we spoke about that one. And so a lot of exciting times. There'll be a lot of information going out there over the next 3 months. So there should be no lack of information and interest for people to look into.
No, and a lot of it will be available via WCAT and the website, and I believe the Facebook page.
Facebook page, yeah.
There'll be plenty of areas to get information as we get closer to those dates. We also have annual town meeting coming up.
Yes.
Early May.
Early May. I think May 4th will be the date of town meeting. I think that's the first Monday in May.
For the first session.
For the first session.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there will be multiple sessions for the spring town meeting.
No doubt. Another thing that we haven't talked about at all in the past year is library strategic plan.
Yes.
What is that, and what?
Well, being a wrap up of last year, and you kind of forget what happened in the beginning of 2019 at this point. Well, every 5 years, libraries that are certified to the state of Massachusetts need to update and upgrade their strategic plan. And I was fortunate enough and very honored that I was requested by the library trustees to serve on this committee. And I was very happy to do that. And I think basically what we discovered in going through that, and there were a number of other citizens, from all walks of life, but all of which use the library. I think there was one pretty clear that Wakefield is a very well-used, wonderful resource for the community. What are we going to do to continue on this path over the next 5 years? And really, we had a number of meetings. We had the library hired a facilitator to look at this, and really came down to, I think we're doing as a community a lot of things wonderfully well, and those we want to enhance. And but a big part of this was, how do we get information out? That's kind of a current theme, right? That we struggle with on the town side, the school side,
Sure.
the library side. How do we best get information out to people? How do we engage people to come in, especially to the library? What types of programs should we be doing? What kind of hours should we have? One thing we found that a few years ago, we expanded to Sunday hours. Sunday is one of the busiest days now. In fact, when the Sundays are stopped during certain times of year, and it's usage was going down anyway, but as a budgetary consideration as well. People have almost lost that the library isn't open on Sunday, which is a wonderful problem to have. So I think, continuing on the path at the library that it's going on, continuing to promote new and more programs that really support people of all ages. Whether they're our youngest children coming in for what we may have traditionally thought of as library story hour, to programs and information that maybe can help the seniors and what have you. So it was kind of very interesting, because there is a lot going on there, and how people using libraries are different than they were years ago. I mean, no one, like when we went and did a report, right? No one's going through and flipping through the volumes anymore. It's all kind of on.
Or the card catalog.
Or the card catalog.
I kind of miss that. That
the
was
old
fun,
Dewey
actually.
Decimal System. We actually
that's where you got the discoveries of, wow, I didn't know we had that.
Exactly. And we were even taught how to use it in school, as I remember.
Sure.
For researching. So we're showing our age, I guess. But so I think that was really very exciting and a lot of fun to be on. So I really enjoyed that portion, and I think that we are well positioned, well heeled financially. We certainly have things in the building that will continue to upkeep and what have you through the capital program. But I think it's been really good. The other thing about the library is, people need to know that is a public building.
Right.
And it is used by everybody. And it is used by some of our fellow citizens that are a little bit less fortunate than you and I are. And that does create a dynamic over there. And part of that is, how do we make sure that we're fair and open and warm to everybody, and we're providing a great service. And that's something that we kind of talked about and we're working through. And I think that they really, Sharon Gilly did a wonderful job, and I think Catherine McDonald is taking that baton and doing a wonderful job as well. So,
and, unlike a lot of libraries in a lot of communities, it has become so much a part of the community, and they're always searching for new ways to, the jazz concerts in the summer, for one thing, draw people to the library. The usage of the lecture hall downstairs. I know a local group, The Room to Write, is doing a seminar there in a couple of weeks, with a local author to help other writers in town find their voice.
I think that's fabulous. And I think that arguably the classy event of the year, Blossoms, is held at the library. Blossoms at the BB. So
which is May 2nd this year.
Which is May 2nd, and I will say for early, I will be in town. Sometimes I'm out of town. That weekend I will be in town this year, so I'll be looking forward to going.
It's a fun time.
It is a great time.
It really is. It really is. Yeah, something else that's coming up, and this may or may not come up at town meeting, but the Vocational School has been accepted into the school building program. And for people who are new to the town, that Vocational School building is approaching 50 years.
Yeah, approaching and maybe a little bit older than 50 years, but it is up there. And I think the wear and tear on a vocational school is a little bit different too, because of the machinery and what have you. So what also happened, so we'll talk about the vocational school and talk about the high school. Very, very exciting times. So the vocational school, which is right up Hemlock Road behind the high school, services, I think, about 12 communities, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And they are maybe a year ahead of where Wakefield is in building a new school. So they are going through architectural plans and designs and meeting with the school building authority making sure that everything is put together correctly. So that is a very interesting and exciting project. Like Wakefield, they went through a couple of times and didn't, have everything going. So interestingly enough is that the way that a vocational school building is funded for the building of the school is a little bit different than how the towns are, how the students are funded. So there's a straight per capita cost. So if it's a $80 million school program or school bond, and Wakefield has 10%, then we own $8 million of that.
Right.
And that fluctuates every year as they yearly pay the bond. Little different than our per capita of when we send the students is where the Chapter 70 money follows it. So how much Chapter 70 funding your community gets follows the student, kinds of make a difference in what you pay. So it actually works out better for Wakefield on the bonding.
Okay.
So we'll have to see what happens there. It's also very exciting because of the demographics of the vocational school. Their reimbursement rate is going to be around 72, 73, 74%. So that's huge, too, because of the community surrounding it. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually on their school building committee. So I will be on that school building committee. I'll be on the school building committee for this one. I will be school building committeed out. So exciting at the end of December, if we want to switch gears to the Wakefield High School.
Sure.
After, I think, 2 or 3 times being rejected by the SBA. And when I say we were rejected by the SBA, School Building Authority, a lot of it has to do with need. I mean, they really do go around and look at some communities that have a greater need. And, it certainly is fair to say that there were some of our neighbors that did have a greater need than we did with Wakefield High in recent years. It's also fair to say that there might have been some close calls that maybe we could have been pushed in on. I think a couple of things that helped us put it over the hump this year. Number one was the very positive experience Wakefield had with the SBA, with Galvin, which was really just closed out a couple of years ago with the final audit. So that was very important and good because they knew us, all right? They had a recent experience with us, and I think the SBA would say that it went very well from their standpoint. The other thing was that when we looked at it after being rejected, so-called rejected by the school building authority the last few days, we really, and I give great credit to the superintendent of schools and his staff for doing this, they really pulled apart the statement of interest that we put in and really changed a lot of it and made it much more robust, much more compelling. And there's a couple of people that need to be thanked, certainly the school committee that worked on it. But Bob Vincent, one of our citizens in town, member of the Human Rights Commission with you, spent a lot of time working on this as a private citizen, giving his expertise on it. And I think that those last submissions were night and day. And Bob deserves gratitude from the community for this. Unsung hero, wasn't looking for any fanfare, wanted to do the right thing, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. So anyways, that's now in the till, where I guess we've been invited to apply. So either at the April or November town meeting, most likely the November town meeting, just because we have to get things together, we will have to fund the kind of the design phase of this. And the SBA puts you on a time frame. We're actually going to be invited into the program. Our invite date, I believe, is April 1st or April 20th of this year. And then within 270 days, so by the end of December, we need to have secured a kind of a funding agreement. And that will project funding agreement, and we'll get that done. So that's very exciting. There'll be a lot of discussions on whether it's an addition renovation, or it's all new construction. So all of those things will flush out as we go through a feasibility study.
The other thing that happened last year, and I don't know how many people noticed this, we have a new town website.
We do. We completely revamped the old town website, which was, I guess, 8 years old, 10 years old. Completely kind of a new brand for it. It's much slicker. I think it's Information is much easier to follow.
It's easier to navigate.
Easier to navigate. There is a concerted effort to make sure that all committees have their minutes on there and easily to follow. And, I think public needs to be a little bit patient because a lot of these committees are all volunteer-based. I think, the town council, the school committee, finance committee are
Right.
more, professionally managed by people in-house. But a lot of these are volunteers. It might take them a little bit longer, to get them on, but that's happening. The information is better. It's updated. It's much more interactive. Some of these big projects in town, either the town's doing the Envision project, a lot of information on the website and easy to follow on that, including meetings that were filmed by WCAT, which
Sure.
WCAT also puts on via their YouTube. We also have links to that. We did hire a little over a year ago a communications manager, and her name is Jen McDonald. She's doing a fabulous job in updating
She
all
is.
of this. We're also promoting local events, either on our kiosks with paper promotions or digitally on our digital kiosk and on our community calendar. It really has there's just so much more information out there, much more accessible. I'm very proud of it. There's a need to improve, absolutely. But there's a lot more. We have the virtual town hall budget on there, open checkbook. There's a couple of kinks that need to be worked out to make sure the right information. We're very close, so that'll go out so people can see, what's being, really what our checkbook is doing, what we're paying. So we're all about making sure all that information is out there. So it's an exciting time, and it's really, really robust, and it's good. And we also sent out our first newsletter from the town, and that'll be coming out quarterly. So some interesting stuff going on there too.
Communication is always the best thing.
Yes.
One of the hallmarks of last year is after a 2-year effort, many bylaws were finally accepted by the town.
Yes.
But the one that got away from us yet again is dealing with the long-term empty storefronts.
Yeah, that one, it was fairly close. It wasn't a blowout either way. I think that in Wakefield in 2019, when this was voted on, people are still much more interested in the carrot approach versus the stick approach on these empty storefronts. And I think that there was a question about how do we manage it? How do we how fair would it be? I mean, and I think it was somewhat confusing to the public. And I think when the public is confused, they say no. And I think that's for any bylaw or for any charter change, for that matter. Same sort of issue. I'm not so sure when that's going to come back or if it's going to come back, because unlike zoning, it could come back over and over again. We do have a limited number of empty storefronts. I do think those that we have had that have been empty for a while, this may have never made a difference in those cases anyway. We do try to work independently and individually with those property owners. Sometimes there are great barriers, and the biggest barrier that I see out there is a real disconnect between what the property is worth in its condition and its location, what a willing buyer or renter is willing to pay, how does the renovations that they all need to have get rolled in, and a reality of, just because downtown Boston is getting X, Wakefield is not downtown Boston, they're not going to get X. So those chasms are hard to bring together, and I think that frankly, some of the property owners need to be much more realistic about what this means. But we've gotten on them. I think for the most part they're cleanish. They're not perfect, but that was kind of an interesting discussion, and I kind of thought that might pass at town meeting. And I know that you looked at it often. We talked about it offline at least before and before
Yeah.
the meeting we talked about
Yeah.
it too.
And, because some of those properties have been empty for nearly a decade.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, part of it is that with some of the properties going back because they were long-term the same concern for many, many years, there are issues of environmental cleanup.
Yeah, a couple of them had that. ADA issues, and
Yep.
frankly, all of them.
Yep.
Aging, electric and plumbing in all of them. Lack of parking in essentially all of them. So,
But that's been an
that-
ongoing,
yeah, that's an
and
ongoing
that discussion will continue,
Could continue,
for the
but it's there.
foreseeable future. Sure.
So, but I think you are seeing pockets. You're seeing a couple of buildings that were vacant that have been purchased right across from the Galvin Field, the old Napa building, and the used car place. We always knew
Yeah.
that. We always knew that would change, right?
Yeah.
The Galvin comes in, you get the beautiful fields, you got more
Sure.
stuff going on.
Sure.
You had someone build a nice set of condo apartments. Rail trail's going to be coming through.
Right.
So that corridor is going to change.
Right.
It is going to change.
Well, there's an impetus for it to change
Right.
that didn't exist before.
Right.
And
when the first one goes through, I think that helps
Yeah.
domino the neighborhood.
Well, but there's also still the ongoing work at, what will hopefully be the new home of the Boys and Girls
Right.
Club
Right.
that is environmental mitigation there.
Exactly. And
is
I
the
think
problem.
that mitigation is close.
Yeah.
But it takes a long time, and when environmentally, when it migrates, because these properties are very close together,
Right.
it takes a little bit of a toll.
And that's a subject that's going to come up over and over again in certain parts of the town as buildings become available because of the history behind those buildings.
Exactly.
And that's something we
Right.
could do a whole show on at some point
Yeah.
down the road. Also with the downtown and more with particular areas outside of the downtown, parking enforcement.
I think parking enforcement has been a great success at very minimal cost. We hired two part-time parking attendants. One of them is still with us. One of them worked briefly, and it wasn't, their bailiwick. At the end of the day, that position has been or will be replaced very shortly. Tickets have increased dramatically. The increase, and it's not the $25 per ticket that is that interesting to me, but it does cover the cost of the program. But what's really interesting to me is you can go downtown, in our downtown now, and get a parking space where you couldn't before. We coupled the new enforcement with pushing out some merchant parking for longer period of hours, or you can purchase a sticker for $10 a year or placard for $10 a year to park extended in certain areas, kind of away from the downtown. If you look up in front of the in front of Common Street, in front of Common Street, which was made one way going towards the downtown.
Right.
That allowed us to put legal parking on both sides of that street. Okay, we picked up probably 12, 13 parking spaces, including one handicap space.
Yeah, along
Line
the
them
old
all.
Upper Common or now Veterans Memorial Park. Yep.
Line the spaces so they're defined.
Yep.
And that allowed us to provide a spot, new legal spots, for merchants to come in, or for people that wanted 4 hours.
Sure.
People say they want to go, we just talked about the library, they want to go to the library and 2 hours just wasn't working for them.
Sure.
Okay. It used to be 1 hour parking in front of the library, that turns to 2, and people wanted a longer time, so that whole area in front of the town hall on Common Street is 4. Those spaces are very much filled during the day by mainly merchants, I would say, and I know that because I can see their little placards in the window.
Right.
And making it one way picked up those 12 or 13 spaces that helped the rest of the downtown. So low cost, right? Some paint and some signage. It'll be 20 years before people figure out that it's only a one-way that way, just like Lafayette Street. People still come the wrong way on Lafayette Street. It takes a long time. But what we needed to do was change behavior.
Sure.
You cannot in downtown Boston, New York City, Wakefield, Reading, be in front of your building, your business all day, taking up a space for one of your customers.
Nor should you be.
Nor should you be, okay? And so that behavior had to be changed. And I think it has. It has been changed. And I will tell you that most, if not all, of the merchants and citizens that have come up to see me have mentioned it and said, Steve, this has really worked. This is one thing that has worked. So I think the town council gets a lot of credit on this in really tackling a decades-old problem.
Sure.
And sticking with it, because in the beginning, I've been that roller coaster before. You send out the police to do ticketing, the merchants complain, they have nowhere to go. The Board of Selectmen will say, stop ticketing, we're getting too many complaints. They stop ticketing, we get complaints from the citizens because there's no place to park. So it was a vicious cycle. It seems to be working. So enforcement and some relocation available. Now, in the enforcement all over town, what we've seen is that as a byproduct of that is particularly people commuting are pushing out more and more into the neighborhoods around the train station. So we are tackling those areas with some restrictions and with residential placards so residents can park there. It is a difficult process. Again, we're changing behavior. It seems like every time we push out, people will push out farther and farther.
Sure.
I think now we're seeing it in Greenwood, and I think we're seeing it in Greenwood for a couple of reasons. Number one is that we are enforcing parking in the Greenwood downtown section, but also the cost to park your car at Oak Grove is $9 a day. $9 a day. The cost to park your car in the MBTA spots on North Ave are $6 a day.
Right.
So now those 73 or 74 spaces in Greenwood that the town has are full. They're full, and it's $3 a day. So that's why they're full, and that's 70 cars there a day when just a few years ago it was 30 or 40.
Right.
So I think what this has done, part is moving out into the neighborhoods. And you're seeing around the Greenwood area, you're seeing streets that were never posted, that were never an issue.
Sure.
Now they see commuters there all day.
Sure.
And if some of these commuters were smart, it wouldn't be so much of an issue. But they block people's driveways.
Right.
They get too close to the driveways.
Right.
They're discourteous to some of the homeowners.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're kind of getting what you asked for. So we'll be looking at those streets with citizen input. We just had a big meeting regarding Cedar Street and made some changes. And actually, the neighborhood had to change a little bit different parking animal that they want, a little bit different hours that met their neighborhood better. And Lieutenant Anderson, our new traffic enforcement officer, I guess he's called, is doing a wonderful job with that committee. We're having some great conversations with neighborhoods. So I think you can look out in the Greenwood area, which I used to live years ago, so I get it. So I still do. All the babies came home from the hospital there, and you still live there. So yeah.
Yep. Lastly, real quickly, because we are running out of time, but you ended the year with a great new addition to the family.
Yeah. Samuel Thomas Maio, our second grandchild, was born. And he, as a grandfather, they bring a lot of joy to your life. This child is nothing about what is he? Nothing but smiles.
Yeah.
Likes to eat and smile. He's on solid food very quickly because he has to be. And his whole family is thrilled with him. We're thrilled with him, and we look forward. My wife and I have had 3 boys and 2 grandsons. Trying for that girl. Well, we're not trying for the girl.
Yeah, we have the 2 girls, but we have the 2 grandsons.
Someone's got to try for the girl in the future. So we'll see.
All good stuff.
All good things.
Yep. And we'll have much, much more to talk about. One thing I would like to encourage you out there who may watch us regularly, if you have some subjects you'd like us to cover this year, please send us some ideas either through the WCAT website or through their Facebook, and we would be happy to look into them and cover them. And with that, we'll see you next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Get out and vote.